Hey everybody, welcome to tonight's studentloanjustice.org live stream. It is Wednesday, August 12th, 2020. How's everybody doing out there? My name is Alan Collins. We are Student Loan Justice. We are the oldest, largest, and really only legitimate citizens group of any significant size actually fighting for student loan justice. We've been around for 15 years. We've been featured on 60 Minutes in the New York Times, in the Wall Street Journal, and NPR and PBS, and Newsmax, and Fox News, and Rolling Stone Magazine, and Vice News, many other places. For the first 15 years of our existence, folks, we fought very moderately for the return of bankruptcy protections to student loans. That really lies at the core of this predatory, unconstitutional lending system that we now find ourselves under. Well, folks, I am here to tell you that this is now a failed lending system. The student loan swamp, the people in Washington, D.C., the predator creditors who have stripped our rights away from us on student loans and perpetuated this viciously predatory hyperinflationary lending program, they've pushed it over the cliff. You know, we now can say that the default rate for 2004 students is 40%. We can now say that 80% of all federal student loan borrowers will never be able to repay their loans. You know, every loan in this country has uniform bankruptcy protections surrounding it, except for student loans. The founding fathers called for uniform bankruptcy laws in the Constitution, ahead of the power to declare war, ahead of the power to raise an army, even. So this lending system is toast, folks. It's failed. And this was true even before the coronavirus crisis. We've got to get these loans gone, and to that end, our petition on change.org, just go to change.org/cancel student loans. It's now got like 554 or 5,000 signatures on it. We're trying to get up to like 10 or 15 million because, folks, the numbers are huge. If you thought you were suffering by yourself and it was all your fault and you're afraid to tell anybody about it, etc., you're suffering in silence, don't do that. It's bad for you. The large majority of all student loan borrowers will never be able to repay their loans. 80%. And you know, there's 55 million borrowers in the country. So that's like 44 million people are losing sleep over their student loans. They're in default, forbearance, they're in deferment, they're not able to make payments, or they're paying and their balance is going up. So this lending system has jumped the shark. It is done. It's toast. And the only question now is whether it's going to go away in a really ugly way or a good way. The ugly way is if we do nothing and let the swamp people in and around the Department of Education, who sits atop this hornet's nest, by the way, the Department of Education are not good actors. If they have their way, then people will start getting their properties taken, property lien. They'll find themselves sued in civil federal court. They could even find themselves being arrested. And believe it or not, 5 years ago, federal marshals in Texas began to arrest student loan debtors. Now, they arrested them for failure to appear, but they sent the summons to the wrong address. It's kind of a kangaroo court type thing. People are indeed being arrested on account of failing to appear on their student loans. And this little federal district in Texas had plans to arrest something like 1,500 people, 1,500 student loan borrowers. So we don't want that, folks. We're a better country than that. These loans have to go away. The lending system has got to be canceled. And like I said, this was true before the current crisis we find ourselves in. It's even worse now. Nobody's paying now. And if you think that anybody was going to start paying come September 30th when that suspension expired, you're wrong. President Trump, being apparently not an idiot, extended that suspension. But, you know, to my view, that's just one more nail in the coffin. Nobody in Washington knows what to do about this lending program. It's failed, but no politician, well, very few politicians have the guts to call this failed lending system for what it is. So, hey, folks, I want to talk tonight about Kamala Harris. For the first 15 years of our existence, we were fighting very moderately for the return of bankruptcy protection to student loans. And to that end, I can tell you all the stuff we did, but let's just say the last year, we spent most of that last 12 months in Iowa. We were following around all the presidential candidates, pushing them very hard. To our credit, we were able to convince Elizabeth Warren to adopt our plan, our goal of returning bankruptcy protections to student loans. And again, to our credit, Joe Biden supposedly adopted that plan, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But suffice it to say, we got very up close and personal and spent a lot of time with all of the candidates. And so I just thought that you might, and by the way, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to throw them out. I hate being a talking head. I would much rather have a give and take and hear your feedback on things. But anyway, so tonight, a little special topic. We're going to talk a little bit about Kamala Harris, and my impressions of her as we followed her around from town to town in Iowa in the 7 months before the primary elections in February. So what's to say? First of all, first the good. Kamala Harris, to her credit, was one of the first senators to co-sponsor the bill that we've been fighting for very hard, S-1414. This bill would return bankruptcy protections to student loans, as you might guess. And so that's good. But just about every presidential candidate in the Senate who were senators co-sponsored that bill, with maybe only one exception. I think Cory Booker did not. All the other senators did: Elizabeth Warren, Kirsten Gillibrand, and Michael Bennet, and others. But still in all, that's not nothing. That's pretty good. What I will say is that Kamala Harris's student loan plan, at first it was basically non-existent, and then towards the end of I think maybe January, maybe December, in Iowa, she stepped up and she said, "Okay, I want to forgive student loans for everybody that earns less than $100,000 a year," which sounds good, right? I mean, it sounds great if you earn less than $100,000 a year. And so, compared to, say, Bernie Sanders' plan, he wanted to forgive all student loans for everybody. It wasn't that. It was maybe on a par with Elizabeth Warren's plan, who wanted to cancel up to $50,000 on student loans. But folks, I'm here to tell you that all of the Democratic plans, and we supported Elizabeth Warren, we supported Bernie Sanders because of their stand on bankruptcy. But all of the Democratic loan cancellation plans are nonsense. They're all hogwash. They all require Congress passing a law that raises $1 trillion, $2 trillion in taxes, which right there is just not going to happen. But okay, let's say that it did. And then give that money to the lending system to pay for this loan cancellation. Well, the federal government owns 85% of all student loans. The taxpayers have already paid for these loans. They don't need to pay twice. That's just nonsense. And so Kamala Harris, like the other candidates, her student loan cancellation plan sounded good, but it would have never worked. And so, in the universe of Democratic candidates, I would have put Kamala Harris maybe slightly above average, maybe a little bit. I would have put Joe Biden, frankly, at the very bottom of the heap because of his sordid history on student loans as a senator from Delaware and his close ties to Sallie Mae. Other things that I will say about Kamala Harris is it was kind of spooky in Iowa. Her organization was like, whoa, it was amazing. It's like obviously extraordinarily well funded. She had opened field offices all over the state, like before anybody else. She had paid staff, every single little city around, not the little cities, but every major city, Ames, and so forth. So that was weird. It was like, why? What's behind this? Clearly there was some establishment, maybe California, maybe some Hollywood money behind her. I don't know. But it was odd. Uh, and by the way, we volunteered for her office. We did phone bank with her one day. We found it very difficult to get any meaningful dialogue going on with her campaign leadership. It really just wasn't happening. Um, so that was off-putting, let's say. As the weeks and months dragged on in Iowa, um, her stump speeches almost never mentioned student loans. She had just a very personal story to tell about being the daughter of immigrants and all that sort of thing. She was very up on the platitudes and very short on specifics. That, again, was pretty off putting to me. Um, I talked to her personally at least, I think twice actually. Um, was never able to nail her down on the bankruptcy question. She just kind of, I got the impression that she may not have even known that she had co sponsored that bill. Um, she just didn't seem to know a lot about it. And I think that her general impression of others in Iowa of her was about kind of the same. They were like, wow, who's this woman? Why is there all this stuff and these cameras and a well funded campaign? But just nobody really got her. She just never connected to the audience. And, she dropped out of the campaign before the first vote was cast, I believe. So, my overall impression, I could be wrong, I don't think I am, is that Kamala Harris is really just, she's a political animal, an insider. Um, she's an establishment candidate by far, just like Joe Biden is. I would say this is probably the DNC establishment's dream team. So, and that does not bode super well for us on the student loan front. But there is hope. And here is the most important thing that I have said yet tonight. We are pushing Joe Biden. He said he was adopting Elizabeth Warren's bankruptcy plan, and he copied and pasted it. But what he has not done, he has not pledged that as president, he will return bankruptcy to student loans by executive order. Elizabeth Warren did that. Joe Biden has not yet done that, although he has said he's adopting her plan. So I have put a call in to his campaign manager, who we have a relationship with, and I made it very clear that if they want our endorsement and support, that is the minimum that they have to do. But folks, the game has changed. And I told Greg, I went a little even further just this morning. I said, this is a failed lending system, and I don't think bankruptcy is enough. I don't think it's enough to really swing many voters anymore. I think that not only do you need to do that pledge for bankruptcy by executive order, you also need to pledge that you will cancel all the federal loans that you can by executive order, which is exactly what our petition is calling for. Now, we'll see. We're swinging for the fences. Biden has mouthed the words loan cancellation, and his loan cancellation plan is just absolute crap. It's insulting. It's like up to $10,000 and just nonsense. And it's fatally flawed for the reasons I already mentioned. Congress will never raise the tax. And oh, by the way, the Department of Education has no desire or intentions of canceling any loans. So whatever loan cancellation program may be thrown their way from Congress, they will see to it that very few, maybe even no one, actually gets their loans canceled. That's how they roll. That's what their corporate DNA culture commands. That's what they've always done. And I have absolutely no reason to believe that that is what they will always continue to do, so long as the current criminals are running that outfit. Criminals, in my opinion. So that's pretty much the lay of the land. That is where we are right now with the Democratic candidates. There's going to be supposedly something happening in Milwaukee next week. We moved to Wisconsin specifically for the DNC convention, but coronavirus. So we'll see what we end up doing. We probably will go to Milwaukee, and if there's cameras around that we can flash our sign in front of, we'll do that. If you're near Wisconsin and you would like to join us in Milwaukee, drop me a note and let me know. Shoot me an email, justice@studentloanjustice.org. It's very important, folks. We can get this problem solved by the election. That can happen. If we get this executive order loan cancellation circulating in the media, if we can get 5 million people on our petition, that will happen. And our eyes are on that prize. We would like these loans to be gone by the election. We would like Joe Biden to say he's going to do it, and then Donald Trump to actually do it. That would be the most expedient, efficient way to get rid of these loans. Hey, Bina Alperin Sheriff says, my husband is saying he can't cancel loans, federal loans via executive order. Is this true? That's a great question, Bina. I'm glad you asked. And there has been some debate over whether the president can, in fact, cancel federal student loans by executive order. And the answer is yes, he absolutely can. The Higher Education Act gives the Secretary of Education, and by extension, the president who they work for, full authority to waive, cancel, release any and all federal interest in federal student loans. So he absolutely can do this. There's another point of contention. People will point to the Anti-Deficiency Act. So the Anti-Deficiency Act is an old law. It's been around for years. It's never actually been brought to enforce. But the Anti-Deficiency Act says that the president can make no executive order that obligates Congress to spend money. So, and we went back and forth with some swamp people in Vice News about this second controversial question. And here's the thing. Congress does not have to spend money. When the president tells the Secretary of Education to cancel the loans, no money changes hands. These loans were funded by the federal government many years ago. The money was spent years or decades ago. So, the swamp people can, and maybe there would be a lawsuit, I don't know, but they would lose. I'm telling you, they would lose. And it's not just me that's saying that. There's legal scholars across the country, from Yale University and many other places, who completely agree with me on both of those counts. So, yes, the president absolutely can cancel all federally owned student loans by executive order. Now, there's another distinction here. Not all student loans are owned directly by the federal government. About 85% are. About 15% are not. So private student loans, for example, could not be canceled by executive order. There's also these sort of hybrid loans that are guaranteed by the federal government, but they're actually owned by private companies like Sallie Mae and others. These are the older style FFELP loans. And that's like maybe 7 or 8% of all student loans. They also could not be canceled directly by executive order. However, for those loans, and this is a bit of a workaround, theoretically, people could default on those loans and then demand that they be transferred directly to the federal government. Then, assuming such an executive order was still in force, indeed, they would be canceled. And then there's another tiny class of loans called Perkins loans, which are, again, hybrid university/government loans. Government guarantees them. The colleges actually make the loans and collect on the loans and make a king's ransom on the loans, I might add. Those also could not be canceled by executive order. And that is why, and it's not a big deal, being able to cancel 85% of all student debt by executive order is a big deal. But we are also still fighting for the return of standard bankruptcy protections to those small percentage of loans that would still exist after this executive order. So I hope that answers your question. I would urge you to Google the Anti-Deficiency Act. Maybe Google my name and Vice News and President and Cancel and Student Loans or something, and you can read that debate. So, yes, the president has it in his full authority to do what we are asking him to do. And by the way, he's already done it, so you know. He issued an executive order a couple of months ago that canceled the federal student loans of all 100% disabled veterans. So, yeah, president can do it. Anybody telling you that he cannot is wrong, and it might go to court. It probably would go to court because the student loan swamp is pretty strong, but they would lose. They don't have a leg to stand on. So yeah, dudes, it all comes down to this petition. The most important thing that we are asking everybody to do right now is to contact a news organization. We don't care if it's Rush Limbaugh or Rachel Maddow or anywhere in between. It could be Chinese Central Television. It could be Al Jazeera. It could be Telemundo. It could be anything you want. Rolling Stone, Vice News. We are ready to make and defend this argument in front of any and all audiences. We've been featured in the past on 60 Minutes, Top Story, in the New York Times, Los Angeles Times, NPR, PBS, Vice News, Fox News, Newsmax, you name it. We've probably been on there. We are very good at doing interviews, particularly about this petition and particularly right now. So we're not asking you to do the interview, although if you feel up to it, by all means, give it a crack. But if you don't feel comfortable being interviewed, which I completely understand, you don't have to. You don't have to do any of the heavy lifting. Just email a producer, a reporter, a news tip thing at a local news station, anybody. Just get an email address. I don't recommend Twitter because just nobody really pays attention to Twitter. Reporters don't really read what people say that often and stuff. Get an email, that's more solid, or even better yet, call them on the phone. Set them up. Tell them to interview us about this petition. Our plan for student loan cancellation is unlike every other nonsense plan out there. Ours is the only plan that will work. Now, whether it's President Trump that does this executive order and reaps the electoral benefit, or whether it's Joe Biden, whoever the next president is, doesn't matter. It's got to happen. And the president is the only entity that can make that happen. And it will happen when we get 10 or 15 million people on our petition. And we will absolutely get 10 or 15 million people on our petition when everybody makes that happen. Everybody knows at least 5 people with student loans. 4 of those 5 people are losing sleep over their loans, whether they tell you or not. They're freaking out about it. They need to know about us. We need them, and they need us. You know, with 15 million signatures on this petition, there's no way they could not cancel student loans. It would be a done deal. You know, at the end of the day, if nothing else, we just stop paying, which everybody has already pretty much done anyways. But I'm telling you, folks, there is true power in numbers. There's no reason that we can't get 15 million people on our petition. There are 55 million people in the country with student loans or who are co-signed on them. 80% of them are freaking out about their student loans right now. That's 44 million people. If we even get 1/3 of those people on our petition, that's 15 million people. The math is really good for us, folks, but it's only going to happen when you take it seriously. These are your loans. This is your problem. And look around. Unfortunately, we are the pioneers on this. I wish it wasn't true, but it is. So I hate to put that pressure on you, but we've got to punch a little above our weight, folks. We've got to actually do a little bit of effort. And the easiest, most effective thing that you can do right now is to contact a news organization and tell them to report on our petition. Give them my name if you want. I'm very happy to do the interview. Give them my phone number, area code 202-594-1120. Give them my email address, justice@studentloanjustice.org. And I'm very happy to do all the heavy lifting, answer all the tough questions. Hey, Bina. Is it Sheriff or Sharif? I'm going to say it's probably Sharif. I'm very happy to help. Hey, Nick Salino. Long time no talk to you, man. How are you doing? Hey, Alan, I thought it was possible to convert FFEL student loans to direct loans pretty easily. I just haven't because I feel so burned by the system. But if forgiveness is on the table, I'm almost 100% sure that the person I spoke to at Navient said this, Seymour, conversion was possible. Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, given the ways to turn your FFEL loan into a government owned loan, I wouldn't sign anything that obligates you to debt. I mean, that's just my instinct tells me. I think probably the easiest way for that to happen would be to simply default on the loan, or maybe it's already in default. If it's already in default, you can call your guarantor right now and you can say, I command thou shalt transfer my defaulted loan directly to the Department of Education, and they legally have to do it. That's what I did, by the way. No reason to have your loan sitting in the hands of some ridiculous swamp third party. It's just going to add cost to the loan. So now I'm not saying, and we don't give, I'm not telling you to do that now, because whether these loans get canceled by executive order is still an open question. That's the first thing, folks. That's what we need to be fighting for right now. We've got something like 82 days or something before the general election. And if I were you, and if you really care about getting these loans gone, I would spend at least 15 or 20 minutes a day contacting news organizations, pasting the link to our petition everywhere on Facebook that you possibly could, everywhere on Twitter, in front of every celebrity who you think might be sympathetic to our cause. Anything you can do to circulate that petition. As you might be able to tell, we are not a highbrow operation here. We don't have a staff. We don't have an army of lobbyists. We don't have an army of lawyers. We don't have a marketing team at our fingertips to deploy. All we have is you. All we have, at least theoretically, are the 55 million people out there who have student loans or are co-signed on them. And really, as a practical matter, all we really have are the 15,000 people in our Facebook group and the 550,000 people on our petition. So that's like, 600,000 people. That's a little bit of an army, guys. That's not small at all. We can do a lot with that. But it begins with you. And you have no idea how important you are, in the famous words of John Connors from Terminator lore. Truly, folks, it starts with you. We've been doing this for 15 long, hard years now. And the one thing that we've learned more strongly than anything else is that there is true power in numbers, and that when everybody does just a little bit, that's how the mountain gets moved. So I'm going to close with that. I've gone a little bit longer than I wanted to tonight. I'm going to close by simply repeating myself. Call a reporter, call a news organization, C-SPAN, CNN, Fox News, we don't care. Tell them strongly to report on our petition. Give them my name, Alan Collins, my phone number, 202-594-1120. Give them my email address, justice@studentloanjustice.org. I'm very happy to do the interview. We also have people all over the country, in every media market, who are willing also to be interviewed, to put a human face to this national tragedy, this national threat, this weaponized lending system and all the damage that it's doing to the country. So we can really help news organizations do really good stories very effectively. But it starts with you. When you set them up, we will knock them down. Don't know what more I can say, except that these are your loans, your problem. Get off your ass, and let's get this problem solved in the next 82 days. Well, good luck, Godspeed, and God bless. And I'll be back on Wednesday. Ed will see you tomorrow night. Peace. Or no, I'll be back on Friday. Ed will see you tomorrow night.